1, 2, 3, 4. I saw my brother in a stranger's face. I saw my sister in a smile. My mother's laughter in a far-off place. My father's footsteps in each mile. I thought I knew who my neighbor was. We didn't need to be redeemed. Oh, what could I have been thinking of? Was it all some kind of dream? I saw my country in the hungry eyes of a million refugees. Between the rocks and the rising tide, as they were tossed across the sea. There was a time when we were them, just as now they all are we. Was there an hour when we took them in, or was it all some kind of dream? I saw the children in the holding pens. I saw the families ripped apart. And though I try, I cannot begin to know what it did inside their hearts. There was a time when we held them close and weren't so cruel, low and mean. And we did good unto the least of those. Or was it all some kind of dream? I saw justice with the tattered hem. I saw compassion on the run. But I saw dignity in spite of them. I prayed its day would finally come. There was a time when we chose our sides, and we refused to live between. We rose to fight for what we knew was right. Or was it all some kind of dream? Last night I lay in my true love's bed, and she lay there close beside. And we lay thinking about what lay ahead, and wondering if the sun would rise. For it seems that these are darker days than any others that we've seen. Oh, how we wish that we weren't wide awake, and this was all some kind of dream.
Good evening. My name is Greg Sharonow.
And I'm Hussein Aladina, and we're two of the co-founders of the Refugee Action Fund. The Refugee Action Fund started in 2016. If memory serves, Greg called me at the office. This was at the time when refugees, particularly from Syria, were making the news, making the front cover of the paper. And Greg knew that I was the product of refugees, and that I would be sort of motivated to do something. I called Michelle Bruhart, who's not on the call today, and the three of us got together with the help of Julie, and we put together our first event in New York City. I was less optimistic than Greg. I wasn't convinced that we would actually be able to do something material. The four of us pushed on, and we're 5 years through. We've raised $1.5 billion for refugees globally. Super proud about that. Super proud about the team. Greg?
Yeah, so I actually, it's funny you say that you were less optimistic, because when I remember the call, your answer was, I got to do something. I agree with you. And Michelle was the same. And I think that actually speaks to exactly what my expectations and what our expectations became, is that we have a community of friends, family, colleagues who know people from all over the world, who know people who've been forced to flee their homes. We have diverse communities. And what the idea was at that time is that if we created an avenue for people to engage with refugees and help them, that we can make this a community-built response to a global crisis. And while the idea started off as having an event to respond to a specific refugee crisis, it became pretty apparent that that wasn't the only refugee crisis that was happening in the world or was going to happen in time. We knew that when we were doing the work at that time, that events like what was happening in Afghanistan today, Haiti, were going to happen. And what we had as an opportunity, what we had at hand, is to, along with our colleagues and along with our friends, was to create an organization that was enabling us to make continued support to grantees who are doing life-saving, critical work to help, whether it be through advocacy, legal, or any other means to meet their needs, to just help those who have no choice, who are relying on other people because they've been forced to flee their homes. And as you mentioned, I'm a product of refugees through my grandparents. This is something that's very important to me. And so when we think about what is the last 5 years have been, I think about it's an opportunity to really see the best in our colleagues, to see the best in our friends, and to do something meaningful to help others. And when I look forward to the next 5 years, I'm very excited to be working with everybody in Refugee Action Fund and our donors to make a difference.
Refugee Action Fund for sure would not be where it is today, Greg, without the generous financial support of so many of the people on the call and others. Tonight's program is really about sharing the impact of that investment. We're going to take you behind the scenes and show you how your dollars, your contribution are working to support and, more importantly, empower people who have been forced to flee their homes. So with that, can I pass it to Julie Gerstein, our co-founder and executive director of Refugee Action Fund?
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Refugee Action Fund began as a project to respond to a question that so many of us ask ourselves, which is, in essence, how can I help? How can I make an impact? Tonight's program is designed to really pull the curtain back on that question and show you how Refugee Action Fund interprets our role as a bridge between people like you who want to help and innovative, community-rooted organizations that are making a critical difference in the lives of people who have been forced to flee their homes. I'm really honored tonight to introduce you to the leaders of 3 organizations that we support and some of their clients who are going to talk about what it looks like to help. You're going to learn more about our model, which is, in essence, it's about empowerment, not charity. At Refugee Action Fund, we believe in the resilience, the courage, and the capacity of people who have survived unspeakable trauma and who know how to thrive if given the opportunities. We believe in organizations that are led by and guided by those most impacted by displacement, because they're really best positioned to understand their community's needs and to empower their communities to lift themselves up. And we also believe in walking humbly with the organizations we support, which means that we trust their vision and we follow their lead. Philanthropy is a precious and critical resource. The needs are so great, and the funding available is a drop in the bucket. At Refugee Action Fund, we're committed both to increasing the amount of funding available to support this work and also distributing the money in a way that uplifts and empowers and upholds the dignity of individuals and families in their greatest moments of needs. I invite you tonight to learn about our impact and then to really think about what kind of an investment you can make to ensure that more people who are seeking safety have the opportunities they need to rebuild their lives and thrive.
Hello, my name is Amaha Casa, and I am the founder and executive director of African Communities Together, or ACT. ACT is an organization of immigrants from Africa and their families. There are about 2 million immigrants from Africa here in the US, and ACT supports the community with direct services. We recruit and train and develop community leaders, and we advocate on issues that affect the community through policy campaigns.
Hi, my name is Odilia Romero. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Cielo.
Hi, my name is Janet Martinez. I'm the vice executive director here at Comunidades Indígenas en Liderazgo, Cielo.
Cielo is an indigenous-led, founded organization by Zapotec women from south of the border. It is the first of its kind.
My name is Jane Fleming, and I'm the executive director of LAMP Lifeboat Ladder. LAMP Lifeboat Ladder is a program to support survivors of torture who can't live safely in their own countries. LAMP Lifeboat Ladder is based on a Rumi poem, and the poem is, "Be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder, help someone's soul to heal, go out of your house like a shepherd." And the idea behind the program is that we're accompanying people on a journey, survivors of torture and trauma and violence who can't live safely in their own countries and have been displaced to another country but aren't yet safe. We provide accompaniment, we provide legal support, medical support, shelter, in order to help those individuals travel to a safe place and rebuild their life.
Immigrants in the U.S. have a lot of common challenges, right? Being far from home and, being trying to integrate and get by in a culture and a society that's different from their own. But for Black immigrants, for the African immigrants that African Communities Together works with, there are some specific challenges. When we integrate into this society, we integrate as Black people, as Black Americans, and the challenges of racism, of anti-Blackness that we experience are parallel and similar in many ways to those that multi-generational African Americans experience. So, you think about some of the stories about community members and having interactions with police and law enforcement, or racial profiling. We also experience oftentimes being overlooked within immigrant communities, being invisible compared to other groups that people think of as being immigrant. So oftentimes you'll see organizations that say that they're serving immigrants and they don't speak African languages, or think about how cultural competence might look different if you're trying to serve, sort of some of the diverse cultures of the African continent, or the different ways and experiences that people have with race and immigration. The way that oftentimes our community members disproportionately are stopped, arrested, and from there go from a jail to a deportation pipeline. That's a different experience affecting a lot of Black immigrants and African immigrants.
Cielo is an Indigenous women-led and founded organization. as such, we come from an experience of being Indigenous women here in the United States. And what that work really means to me, it has been really advocating for Indigenous people here in the United States, creating visibility of who Indigenous people are. I think that oftentimes we forget that in countries like Mexico and Guatemala, there are diverse people who speak diverse languages that when they come over here to the United States, they're filed under Latinx or labeled under Latinx, which really creates an inability to see that there's diversity in language and culture and ideas and the way that they see the world.
The lack of interpreters in the immigration system, it's a human rights violation. When a child comes and you tell them their rights in Spanish, they're not understanding. You know, if you tell your 10-year-old, your 5-year-old the rights in English, even if they were born in the US, they're not gonna fully comprehend the meaning of that message that you're giving them. So imagine a child that comes from a very different worldview, that speaks a very different language. It's like me telling you your rights in Portuguese, right, if you speak Spanish. How much of it are you gonna comprehend? Maybe not a lot.
We're seeing now these horrifying images at the border of roundups of immigrants from Haiti. And we're reminded that, you know, a presidency may change, a Congress may change, but the issues that our community struggles with, they are deep-rooted and long-lasting and are really going to take concerted organizing and advocacy and education to change.
There's a perception, I think, in the international space, in the humanitarian world, that people who are displaced from their country are helpless and that they need saved, that they need rescued. And we're the rescuers, we're the saviors, we're helping them to go someplace where they can get on with their life. We're the ones rebuilding their life for them, we're giving them things. And that model is absolutely backwards. The model should be that they're survivors, they're on a journey, they have a vision for their life, they've escaped terrible traumatic circumstances and war and crossed borders to try and get to safety with their families. And they're the ones leading their journey. They're saving themselves. And our role really is to go along with them on that journey.
Our goal for African communities together is that African immigrants aren't just passive recipients of services or benefits, but they are really leaders and advocates on the issues that affect them. So, you know, we talk about a ladder of engagement where people may come to us as clients, and, you know, say, I need help, you know, applying for my green card. But the goal is for them to move up a ladder where they go from being a client to becoming a member and coming to their first membership meeting, being in community with other immigrants from Africa who speak different languages, who come from different countries and different cultures, but who share a common experience with them in many ways. Building community, developing their own leadership, and then starting to become advocates and more public leaders, right? Being in meetings with members of Congress, talking about why we need permanent status for people with temporary status in this country, and speaking from experience. We don't, you know, we want to be a vehicle by which African immigrants can go from being, you know, invisible, maybe being poster children, but going to being the leaders who are at the front and defining the agenda and advocating for the agenda.
Cielo has a multitude of programs. We have COVID prevention, COVID vaccination, but one of our star programs is the Center for Indigenous Language and Power, CILP. CILP provides interpreters to different people who need interpretation all throughout the United States. We provide interpreters to hospitals, to organizations at the border, to residential facilities. Residential facilities are where there are unaccompanied minors, and a lot of our efforts have been in the reunification of families through providing interpretation services.
Less than 1% of indigenous Mexican people have access to higher education. Therefore, less than 1% actually finish. So we are providing opportunities to that part of that 99% here in the that had to migrate to the US or that is staying back home, by training them and giving them a skill, that they are able to not only support in this human rights crisis, but also have other new opportunities, and also preserving the language.
Hola, mi nombre es Alba González, soy indígena maya quiché de Guatemala y trabajo aquí en Cielo haciendo el outreach en mi comunidad en Los Ángeles, mi comunidad quiché, a través de mi interpretación. También trabajo con SILP para trabajar y conectar llamadas con los intérpretes de otros países para acá, Estados Unidos, y también ayudo a dar más información, ayudar a mis compañeros intérpretes desde Guatemala para que demos un trabajo muy supletivo que debe ayudar a la persona a quien le estamos interpretando. Durante la pandemia que vi la necesidad de buscar trabajo y llegué a una procesadora de pollo buscando trabajo allí, trabajé para poder pagar mi renta. Y después escuché que estaban dando ayudas a comunidades indígenas, que escuché a Cielo, y decidí aplicar. Y cuando vine acá en las puertas de esta oficina a recoger mi ayuda, nunca pensé que iba a trabajar para mi comunidad acá. Mi primera entrevista con una prensa fue con LA Times, si ustedes ven acá. Fue acerca de cómo hacer el outreach en las vacunas y cómo llegar a una comunidad, por ejemplo, que no saben hablar bien en el español o no pueden entender bien, y hablando en su propio idioma como nosotros en quiché, ellos se sienten muy agradecidos. Al principio de la pandemia de eso, con las vacunas, fue que hice el trabajo de hacerles llegar por medio del idioma y ayudándoles a llenar citas para la vacuna y participar. Y fue así que fue creciendo la comunidad quiché, y otras comunidades en general, comunidades indígenas, se acercaron y pues recibieron más información. Y es algo muy bonito que la comunidad sepa quién les está dando una información, se siente más como en confianza que es en su propio idioma. Entonces, participando con SILP, haciendo este trabajo de conectando a intérpretes y ayudarlos cómo hacer nuestro trabajo, me doy cuenta que yo cuando estuve encerrada me hubiera gustado que tan siquiera hubiera tenido un intérprete que me ayude en mi idioma indígena. Me doy cuenta que ahora es muy importante, es muy necesario ayudar a un niño, por ejemplo, que son más pequeños y se siente como un alivio que les hable en su idioma materna, ¿verdad? Y también estoy agregando esto, que cuando yo interpreto en las áreas que me necesitan interpretar, por ejemplo en cortes o en otros lados, cuando nos ven con nuestro traje típico se sienten como identificados. Y para mí es algo muy bonito esta experiencia que me hace seguir avanzando a ayudar a nuestras comunidades indígenas en todos los idiomas que se necesiten.
Met Ahmad Hussein in 2015. He was referred to our program from another organization. And what I remember about that first meeting is that he was very sad. He was not stable in his situation in Jordan. I knew that he had a lot of courage, and he had survived from Syria to Jordan, had taken his family out of Syria, and really had a vision for his life, for himself and his family. I got to know him over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and really learned so much from him, from his journey, his path, and being able to accompany him on that path. He's a writer, he's a poet. I learned that he's a cheesemaker, and so he became the cheesemaker for our project. and was helping other families in the project as well. And this is really a perfect example of this model of accompaniment, this idea that survivors are on their own journey, and if they allow us to accompany them, we can learn things, and we can enrich our experience and knowledge from their experience. And Ahmed has been a leader in our project for many years.
مرحبا، اسمي أحمد حسين دقماق من سوريا، من مدينة إدلب، وأنا صانع جبنة وقبل 3 أطفال، بنت وولدين. وأنا تعرفت على LLL بالأردن من فترة 4 سنوات، وكانت علاقتنا كتير مليحة، مختلفة عن المنظمات الإنسانية الأخرى ومفوضية الأمم اللي كنا طبعا متعودين عليها. وتعرفت عليهم أكثر من فترة 2 سنين، حسيت حالي عضو فعال. اشتغلت معاهم أيام جائحة كورونا، لأن كلنا مثل ما بنعرف بالجائحة كان في حظر ممنوع حدا يغادر المنزل. أنا كنت أشتغل بالمواد الغذائية وتوزيعها، فطلع لي تصريح خروج وصرت أتفقد لعائلاتي اللي بالمشروع الأقل حظاً. ومن خلال ال اشتغلت بمصلحة الجبنة اللي هي أحب على قلبي، وصرت وزع للعائلات المحتاجة بالمشروع. وقويت علاقتنا أكثر مع ال لأن معاملتهم مختلفة، وأنا بتشكرهم كثير.
We really try and understand what it is that they have as a vision for their life. Do they want to go and work as an artist? Do they want to go and work as a cheesemaker? Do they have skills as a chef? Is it a young woman who wants to go to university? So we know what people are imagining for their life before they depart either Jordan or Greece or another country. Our responsibility when they arrive in their new country, whether it's Canada or Germany or France, wherever, the United States, our responsibility is to try and facilitate that vision, to accompany them and try and facilitate that dream so that they can then go on and have that livelihood or achieve that education or be the artist that they imagine they will be. Is it quick? No, it's a very slow process. There's a lot of healing that is happening simultaneously, and the way that people heal is by being allowed to be who they are as a human being, being allowed to be who they are as an individual, and to have that dream and that vision for their life. That's how torture victim rehabilitation happens. That's how trauma recovery happens. But we don't usually think about it that way in our resettlement systems.
Refugee Action Fund support is important for ACT and organizations like ours, not only because it's timely and necessary, but because it's flexible and responsive. A lot of funders make us jump through a lot of hoops in applying for funding and commit to a lot of their goals. Refugee Action Fund really trusts us to know the best ways to impact the community and respond to the needs of the community and to set really our own goals. And that's enabled us to respond to emerging needs and developing issues in our community in kind of a timely and flexible and agile way. So with support from Refugee Action Fund, we're piloting new programs like a national hotline for African immigrants who may be in places where where ACT doesn't have an office, but where we can help connect them to local resources. Refugee Action Fund support is enabling us to do outreach to a detention center in Texas that is where there are a lot of African immigrants who are poorly served by other immigration legal service providers. Refugee Action Fund is enabling us to advocate all the way down from the grassroots all the way up to the White House on issues affecting Africans and other Black immigrants in the US. And it's really empowering and supporting our mission and our communities.
Refugee Action Fund came when we were starting to get funding. Refugee Action Fund was the first people to do a trust-based funding for us. And that was huge because at that time we were only getting income to disperse, yet we couldn't hire anybody to disperse the money. So when actually Refugee Action Fund came and we were able to hire part-time, and I think that seed money started helping us grow because we had a lot of money to distribute, but we didn't have money for payments.
Just to offer a little bit of context, when you receive a grant, there are strings attached where you have to do reporting, or it's project-based. When it's project-based, it really limits the organization's capacity to envision, to expand, to see new horizons. And I think that Refugee Action Fund, giving that initial investment into an organization as new and as young as Cielo, has really allowed us to increase our capacity and really expand our dreams of what Cielo is and what Cielo became. I mean, to be able to say that we took the initial 10 interpretation calls to 300 is really thanks to the investment of foundations like Refugee Action Fund.
One of the biggest impacts of the Refugee Action Fund grants has been just this investment of trust in our model. This idea that what we're doing, which is quite innovative and quite creative and non-traditional, is worth investing in, that people actually feel like what we're doing is good and has merit, even though it's different. And sometimes people say, well, is it scalable? You know, you're not going to buy 1,000 tents for someone with this money, so we're not going to help 1,000 people. Is it scalable? And I think the word scalable is kind of an interesting word, because I think about whether or not we can scale compassion and just a humanitarian vision that's different than what we have now. That is scalable. And certainly it's not necessarily quantifiable, but it's something that we can all contribute to.
Hi, my name is Victoria Rednicki, and I'm the chair of this year's benefit and a member of the Refugee Action Fund Leadership Committee. To close our program, I'd like to thank our generous sponsors who have made tonight's event possible, and each and every one of you for opening your hearts, your minds, and for some of you, your homes, to support Refugee Action Fund's mission of providing safety, dignity, and opportunities to those who have been forced to flee their homes. I'd also like to thank our speakers for their willingness to share with us and for their dedication to making the greatest possible impact in the lives of refugees. I hope that their stories have not only reminded you of the magnitude and complexity of the global refugee crisis, but also empowered you to know that you can make a difference. As we heard from our speakers, the need to support refugees only begins with providing safety, but also extends to ensuring that they have the opportunity to integrate, rebuild their lives, and thrive. The experiences of the past year, from the pandemic to political instability in Afghanistan and the dire situation at the US border, have only underscored the need for greater resources, attention, and support to the refugee community. Refugee Action Fund's work is critical in addressing these gaps in funding that support these efforts, and our impact would not be possible without the investment from donors like you. So please join me in giving generously to Refugee Action Fund today. With your gift, you'll be investing in innovative organizations run by leaders like the ones from whom you heard this evening that are making a profound impact in the lives of refugees around the world. To make your donation, learn more about Refugee Action Fund, or get involved in our work, please visit us at refugeeactionfund.org. Thank you again for joining us for our 2021 benefit. Your support really means so much to us, and we hope to thank you in person soon.
There's a beautiful quote by a French mystic named Teilhard de Chardin. And the quote is, "We are one after all, you and I. Together we suffer. Together we grow. Forever we recreate one another." And that quote really summarizes my entire life philosophy. Together we suffer. If one person is suffering, we're all suffering. Together we grow. If we are accompanying someone and learning and growing with them and contributing to healing in the world, then we're all healing. And we're always learning from each other. We're always growing together. We're always learning from each other and making humanity better if we can.
Bello, ship al bad boy, yetel Jasmine, novelo, Kimak Olal, Bobochi, Mayatán, con Sky, haha, Bello.
Ashimbaron, wayo kulgaba, hokin hawil, yanton meja, yahandon muk, yanu bahta.
Este la king, tus kutu king, wai tu kahil majawi ni, kos tu hal kabnap koshawi, tu la kale bayano, yetel kima kolal kani mini shima, tu la kaluka kil mase walka, wai tu petanil Yucatán, tus kutana le mayatán, tech pale wanik, ule basha konish kanik le maya, quinta siketeli buxikal, konish kanik palales, konish kanik palales, tu la kales kubinesh, tu nahil shock, tu nahil shock.
Ashimbaron, guayo colgaba, hok en hawil, yanton meja, yahandon muk, yanu bahtal tejie, elden ishmagul hag, utlib haron, yamot silmayaga.
Bello, dice capte canal, utsa udik le pasha, ecuta levo bochi, mayak ay, tus cabin, we tu la cal, kita sik, le baskin le dik, te la bujik, ta shikim, te chmase igual winik, kushana klots. Ship al bad boy, bello, bobo,